All right, we're live here on Kicking In with Jason. I got an awesome athlete, awesome coach, top 25 coach. I saw that man on LinkedIn in the country. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
This is Aaron Rusnak. He's been coaching for over 25 years, professional athlete, competed in the pro circuit, ranked athlete at that as well. And man, I'm excited to learn. I'm always wanting to bring people on and share their story, add value, share their experience about training and mindset and fitness in general. So,
Sure.
Aaron, I'm glad to have you on, man.
Thanks, man. Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I love doing stuff like this. And any way to give back to the community, whether it's fitness or tennis or anyone in general who just wants to learn about the game or anything in general. And that, if I
Yeah,
can be any help, I love to help out anyway. That's part of what I've done all these years in the tennis industry. Is just I have a passion for helping others. So, having them get better at whether it's the fitness component or the tennis component, makes me
mhm.
feel like what I'm doing is, being productive for society, and making a difference in someone's life. So yeah, it's all good.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. You're in Illinois, right? What
Yep.
part of Illinois?
Well, I live in Elmhurst, but yeah, I'm born and raised kind of the South Side, so South
Mhm.
side of Chicago.
Right.
But yeah, no, yeah, I live in Elmhurst right now, and I've been there for about 4 years now. So yeah, relocated here about 4 years ago. So yeah, it's been good.
Sweet.
Been doing it mainly relocated for my son because the schooling system is really good and for the things he needs. So it was really good for us to do that for him. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know too much about Illinois or Chicago. I haven't been there yet, but I think
yeah,
I know Southside from Kanye West songs. So I think I got that right, right?
yeah,
Kanye's
yeah,
from that
yeah,
part
yeah,
too.
yeah. You got it. Yeah, yeah, yep. South side of Chicago. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, man.
For sure.
So take us back. When did you start playing tennis? How did you fall in love with this sport? How did it all start? Like take us back to like the very
All right.
very beginning.
So So the crazy thing is actually, my first passion and love was not actually tennis. It was actually basketball.
Mm,
I was a basketball player, actually, believe it or not, since I was about two. I was dribbling the ball when I was 2 years old. I grew up, obviously idolizing, Michael Jordan and before his time, even,
yeah.
some of the greats before that, Pete Maravich, stuff like that. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, I went through, played basketball all the way up until I'd say almost my freshman year of high school, and played on traveling teams, national teams and stuff for basketball as a point guard. I grew up not too far away from Dwayne Wade,
Oh
and
wow.
so I had my wife actually went to school with him, so which was
Right.
funny. But yeah, right around I'd probably say about sixth grade. So I was probably like maybe no, I started at fifth grade. I take that back, about fifth grade or so. My mom was a tennis player. I didn't really know that. She never talked about it, but she always used to watch tennis on TV, and I never really paid much attention to it. And then all of a sudden, one day I sat down, watched it, and I saw Andre Agassi playing. I'm like, man, this guy's pretty cool. He's got earrings, he's got long hair, looks like kind of like a rock star, compared to the
I
other
know.
guys out there. And it
Yeah.
just kind of started from there. I started playing at the local high school, some programs there, and then probably about I started doing that just every summer. I was still continuing basketball, and then eventually what happened was actually the Arthur Ashe Foundation, so NJTL. There was a program in that, so I ended up becoming kind of like a person that like the Arthur Ashe Foundation took care of, in that so I was working with a lot of other kids like me who are kind of underprivileged in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, long story short, yeah, it really kind of catapulted between their support, and belief in me. Also, my parents, doing everything they can to help provide for me. And then, for me, even I started working at a very young age just to try to help, fund paying for, tennis lessons or
Mm,
rackets or, whatever it was that was needed for me to do, But yeah, I was probably like maybe 9, 10 years old when I started to get the bug. And then finally, right around when I was about 13, 14 years old. And now I was like, I'm going to, I love basketball, I love the game. But it was just one of those things where that was always my passion since I was like a little kid. My fondest memories of basketball and
yeah.
sleeping with a basketball. But it changed just because with tennis, for me, what I liked about it, I think what the biggest change was that if I won, it was because I did something well. If I lost, it was on me. It was me to learn about it. It wasn't, I got to the point where the level I was playing basketball where I had amazing players around me. But as you know, sometimes, not everyone is fully committed every day on a daily basis. And I just,
Mhm.
me personally, my mental capacity is that, I may not always feel the grace, but I always find a way to kind of pull out the best I can that day and, leave no excuses. Just, as you know, if in any sport, you get outplayed, hey, good job. But it was just one of those things where I like the feeling of like, if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. And, I had a very similar feel to like kind of how life is. Things come your way in a match and how you decide to handle those situations. Do you adjust? Are you going to be stubborn and say, no, I'm not going to adjust. I'm going to try to keep doing these things. And then a lot of times those things don't pan out, and then it's, like I teach my own kids, it's kind of like, every time you're on the court, it's an opportunity to learn more about yourself. What is your makeup? It's more than, tennis shouldn't define you of who you are. It's just something that you do. But when you do it, what are you learning about yourself as an individual, and how do you basically use that long term in your life? When you have other things in life, if you don't pursue tennis, if you go to college and you do, accounting or a doctor, how do those skills you learned in the sport apply to what you do now and you try to contribute, to society with? So, yeah.
Well said, man. Well said. That was a lot. I love it. But
Sorry, man.
no, that was great. That was great. No, Zach, I like what you said, like how you got to approach, the match the way you approach life. I grew up in karate, competed, traveled, started out when I was 9, so it's been over 20 years since I've been training too. And that was the thing, like, you get on the mat and, you produce there, you build your mindset there, the skill sets, determination, perseverance, and everything you build there, you want to bring it outside of the mat into the real world. And just the overall development, like, I give so much credit to those days of training on the mat and being with my friends and working hard. So, man, sports really do play a role in all that, in overcoming and just being a strong, confident person. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I did martial arts actually as a kid. I did Taekwondo and karate, but I love Taekwondo because of all the kicks and stuff, the Van Damme eras and stuff like that. That stuff was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that the things that you learn from, I think any sport in general, I think there's just always, I think, value, not just the athletic component, if you play multiple sports, what it's good for as an athletic development. But I think as far as just like each sport, I feel like there's something you can take away from it, from a mental standpoint, like, what are you learning about this? Kind of like you said, when you're one-on-one, just like what you're doing when you're competing on the mat, it's just like me competing against an opponent. It's that, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you hide your weaknesses? How do you figure out, getting to your opponent's weaknesses with your strengths? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, in the big part, I think what we got to really be better at in society is just learning to lose, man. Like, you don't win all the time. And that losing is a teacher in itself, and making it okay. Like, of course we don't want to, but understand that's a part of the journey, and it makes us better. Like, that understanding of you win or you lose, you adjust and you come back and you try to be better. I think that's huge. What's your concept on losing?
No, you know what? It's funny. So my little story with tennis, and this is how this kind of goes into this, is that when I first stopped playing basketball and I just solely started playing junior tournaments and competing, no one knew who I was. So I had like really kind of early success. And in basketball, I was used to be honest with you, in basketball, I was used to winning a lot. And then when I first came on the tennis scene, in junior tennis where I lived, I did really well. I competed really well. I won a lot of tournaments. And then right around that time, the coach I had, he's like, the way you're playing now, like, long-term isn't going to really make you the best player you can be. And he's like, these are your strengths. I don't think you realize these things. So he's like, I want to change your game. So I went from a two-handed backhand to a one-handed backhand, went from a baseliner like an Andre Agassi to serving volleying. So coming on everything. So it was a completely switch in my game. So for me, I went basically 2 years. I had to play up in age division because of my birthday, the way it kind of worked out with our tournament stuff. So I basically got my, butt kicked for 2 years because I basically the whole time I was just working on my game, being used to hitting with one hand on the backhand side, coming in on everything. So, it was just changing my whole concept of, well, how do I construct points? How do I win?
Real quick. Did you face frustration during that time too? Was it like a frustrating, like, man, what the heck?
Yeah, I would be lying to you if I said no, there wasn't. I think there was a time, I was probably about a year and a half in, and what ended up happening was I started losing to players I never lost to. Up until this point, I was competing, players I never lost to. Guys who I played very close, it wasn't even close, and then guys that were exceptionally good in my area. I just, it was not even a match for them in that aspect. And it got to the point where I was like, man, at some point, I'm like, man, I could just go back to basketball, and I know I could, go and play play like Division I basketball somewhere. It was like the easy way to take an easy way out. Know that I could fall back on basketball, and I could have been doing that.
Right.
But something to me is like, if I do this now, if I give up on this, one, I have a coach who invested so much time in me and who really cared about my development. And he was like a second dad to me. It's like for me to kind of bail on him, I'm very like empathetic. So I felt bad. Like, man, if I do this, then all that work and all this time he spent with me, I'm basically wasted his time. And me going back to basketball, that's just the easy way out. So I'm like, I used to love the Rocky movies growing up. So I was just like, you know what? This is what I got to do. I got to put myself in a position that I'm not comfortable with. And I got to listen to him instead of looking at the wins and losses, embrace the journey. And that it's a process. And if I embrace the process, which, eventually I matured and understood that was the case. So yeah, there was probably one time in that 2-year span where I was like, I had a really, really bad loss. I drove, my mom drove me 2.5 hours away to a tournament, and I played a guy that I'd never like dropped a few games to, and I lost to like really, really bad. And the whole car ride home, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was crying. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, this is so frustrating. Like, I'm putting in the work, but the results aren't there. But, it did turn around in juniors and, my later years in my career. I mean, as far as, not so much my singles career, it didn't really turn around in juniors. I wasn't really the exceptional junior player in singles. Doubles was my forte. And I think it was because it was a little easier transition, just serving and volleying still just half the court. And, I just loved it, kind of a little bit of the team. It was kind of the team part, kind of like what I got in basketball. It was in doubles standpoint. But yeah, definitely.
Nice, man. Nice. Take me through when you get, before we hopped on, you were saying when you get a new student, you kind of like see what their mindset is and, how much you can push them. Like, take me through when you get a new student, like what's some of the things that pass through your mind or what you're looking for? What do you go on? What do you do with that?
Yeah. I mean, so a lot of things I look at, over the years of doing this is I look at like their, especially if I've never, say if I'm watching a kid play for the first time, the very first thing I look at is like their body language. Even if I haven't said a word to them, I gotta just go and I start watching. Like when I just started this other job and I see a bunch of players, I start watching just their body language. Who you could see is just thriving to compete. Who are ones that are like immediately they lose a point and it's at the end of the world. So that's one thing. I just from a visual standpoint, like how do they carry themselves? And then the next thing is when I talk to him and that, one things that I learned a long time ago is that no matter how much knowledge we have, we first have to learn how that person takes the information, how they learn. So, for me, I normally end up asking a lot of questions and I just become a good listener. I just listen to them because, me just talking, I don't really know how much is going to sink in or even what I'm talking about or how I'm addressing it may not even be how they accept the information or how well they're going to really take the delivery and then, basically apply it. So for me, I ask a lot of questions. I might say, hey, Jason, this situation, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently? Just like simple things or, hey, how much outside of this time do you spend time doing this or that? And just see what type of response. Do they just say, I do things or do they make excuses, of why they can't do things? As everyone's different. So I try to get the idea of their background, their makeup. So like, when I'm working with a kid, like even in my new facility, I'll ask them like, do you do other sports? Because a lot of times because I have the basketball background, I have one boy, for example, I've been working with for a few years, who is also a basketball player at my other facility. And it's like every time there's certain things, a concept, because I understand how he learns, I use basketball terms and that clicks for him to understand the movement or what I'm asking him to do on a tennis court. Now, is it the way you teach tennis per se and the verbiage and stuff? No. But the way I look at it is I'm going to do whatever it is that makes that person understand what they need to get better at and address it that way. Because the way I look at it is it's like, if I only know how to teach one way and say it helps you, but I have 5 other people and that one way doesn't help them, then I'm not really being, I'm not utilizing or I'm not basically helping the other 4 or 5 other people. I'm actually hurting them. I'm not helping them. So when I look at players, like on the tennis side and that, same thing with fitness side too. And I was just trying to see like, okay, what are they good at? What are they not good at? And by that, I also ask them questions because it's amazing for me as a tennis coach. When I go into a new facility or I start working with new players, sometimes they maybe emulate the players that they idolize, but sometimes it's not even their own strengths or what they're good at. So sometimes they're copying things that are not really beneficial. Or sometimes you ask them like, okay, what type of player are you? And they don't know what they are. They just are basically, I call like mindless hitting. They're going and hitting ball, and they might hit the ball and their strokes might look great, but they don't know what they're doing out there. And I told them, I said, to a certain level, you might win matches, but when you want to play an elite level, when I talk to these kids, I'm like, oh, I want to play at a high level college tennis or, beyond or whatever they want to do. It's like, we have to think in a broader view. I said, we have to, live in the present, but then if you have your future goals or this, we have to be realistic of what is needed, to make that possible. So I hope that helps a little bit of the answer to your question.
Nah, that's beautiful, man. I think the big part is that you listen. That's huge. I think that's what makes a great coach is the ability to listen, not just being the one who's just giving out all the cues and the exercises and the drills. Because once you listen, they're gonna tell you exactly what they need, exactly who they are. That's the same thing that's happened with me coaching kids in karate, kickboxing, fitness. Just asking a simple question like, well, why haven't you been able to lose weight? And they just go on, tell their story. Or when's the last time you exercised? And they go on and tell their story. Or why do you have pain there? Oh, because of this, my job. And like all this information, all this data tells you exactly what they need and exactly how you need to approach their exercise or fitness. Like I can't tell you how many times. Even the next day could be different for a client. Like you talk, hey, how was your day? You started running. Well, tell me about that. You feel lower back pain. Well, did you warm up first? Things like that. All the listening is so important, man. Then you can really just learn about their mindset, like you said, learn about their mindset, how they approach getting prepared, all that. I think that was beautiful, man.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed that too. I mean, every day is a different day. It's like right now I work with younger kids, but even when I worked with when I was a college coach, it's just like, obviously those are young adults and they're in a different time frame in their life. A lot of them are going to school to do some type of career and they're trying to be a student and an athlete, student athletes. So, trying to kind of help, basically mentor them, on how to, it's definitely listening is so important. I think it needs to be done more in society as opposed to kind of, in my opinion, as opposed to just kind of, keep going and telling, like you said, trying to be a voice of reason. But it's like sometimes we need to just kind of sit back and listen or put ourselves in other people's shoes to kind of understand, what type of, situation. I think it's, as like your way you were raised, the way you grew up, and the things you might have had, success or struggles with are going to become maybe completely different than me, or there might be completely similarities. But as we always, everybody's going to view things differently or take things differently. And, going back to like the training or the coaching, it's like, just like I was saying earlier, I could tell you something and it sinks in right away, but I could tell someone else something. But if I never ask questions, if I don't know how they think or how they're going to respond or what's their passion about what they're doing, how am I going to know if really what I'm asking them to do is really going to be helping them, period. So, and then I'm basically wasting their time and my time because neither one of us is going to get anywhere where we want to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I have a 19-year-old, client. I have a 48-year-old client. The conversations are completely different. Like we're talking with my 19-year-old client, we're talking about like parenting, how does he deal with his parents, trying to push him this way. And like that feeds into the training. The 48-year-old is more like, man, I'm super tired today. Kids, work, it's all that, man.
Yeah, the daily grind of a parent.
Yeah, man. But it's also the beautiful part because when you really help somebody just make a switch or figure out how to work with those challenges and the different things that come up in life, and you apply it like you said with the sport, like they feel better as a person. They feel more confident. They feel bigger. And it's like, that's the beautiful part of coaching. You're like, man, through this and just simply listening, I was able to help somebody go from here to there. I think that's incredible.
No, absolutely. I think like the listening goes a long way because, like one of my things I always tell my kids now, a couple of things is like, one is I always tell one of my biggest rewards as a coach all these years is that when I have players, that even 25 years ago that I worked with that still call me or say, hey, I'm having my third kid now. Like to me as a coach, that's the biggest like achievement, more than like a title or anything else, because you have people that are still, they thought of you more than just a coach, that you're an actual human being that made a difference in their life, no matter what it was, fitness, tennis, you are some type of inspiration to them, that's like, for example, that's the thing. It's just like, I told one of these kids I started work with the other night, I'm like, I don't, we're doing a lesson at like 9:00 at night. And I said, I said, bottom line is, I go, even if I won millions of dollars and I didn't have to work, I'd still be here right now, being here with you. I said, because to me, this is the reward. The reward is to be out there with you, through this grind of challenges and trying to help you kind of, work through your own, avenue of your success. So that's what kind of excites me about the game, on the coaching side, is to be able to try to problem solve for the individual and help guide them throughout the process. But at the same time, having to listen to them as we go through the process, as much as I know they're looking for me for knowledge and feedback. So,
yeah, man, I love that, because I'm working on opening a gym, right? It's called Roundhouse Like You Mean It, and I have this series where I document everything, where I'm talking about just for like getting my LLC and looking at loans and looking at places, and I'm documenting everything. And every time I hop on like the episode, I'm always shouting out my coaches and my instructors who, they were there with me since I was 9. I'm just like, I wouldn't be nothing without these guys. I love them. They're like brothers to me. They gave me the opportunity to get on the floor and just teach, learn how to run programs, learn how to coach, learn how to instruct. They let me bump my head. So even at 29, I'm still giving them props over 2 decades of what they've done for me. And like you said, when the people give you that phone call, man, I know that's heartwarming, because that happened with me too. I went to go get some food. It's this place called Kinder's, super good. If you ever come to Cali, you got to go to Kinder's. All right, but anyway,
I love California. Is my second home, man. I love California.
Oh, is it? Oh man, nice. Yeah, so I went into Kinder's, and we got our face mask, so I didn't even notice it was one of my old students, man. She was just like, "Mr. Jason," I was like, "Oh, what's up?" And then she was just like, I haven't seen her probably in 5 years. She's just like, "Dude, like every time you talk, man, it's really helped me right now as a nursing student, like just being confident and being strong." I was like, man, that was such a surprise. You don't expect to walk into a sandwich shop and then hear something like that. So it was just like, that was awesome. That was super awesome.
Yeah. No, let me ask you this: when that happened, didn't her eyes light up to see you?
Yeah, man. It was just like she looked at me, and you get you through the face mask, you could see the smile, man. I'll put it that way. So it was.
Yeah. It's a good feeling.
Cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool.
Those are unbelievable moments for sure.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the exercises you do are incredible, man. Like I see the balancing, the stabilizing, the core work, the leg work. A post you put up recently was also about the legs in sports, especially in tennis. I know in karate, kickboxing, dude, it's all about the legs, leg strength. What's some of like the things you really focus on when you're developing leg strength and balance? What do you do with that?
Yeah. So, really, to be honest with you, that I've gone through so many different modalities over my career, even I'm going to be honest with you, even trial and error with my own self throughout my own professional career, junior career, professional career, etc. And in my pro career, I got injured a lot. And, it was one of those things way back when I was playing. I have no regrets for how hard I worked. But looking back at now, as you get older, you get wiser, and you look back and I'm like, man, I overtrained way too much. That's, I didn't, I mean, even though doctors and different people are like, oh, you're doing too much. And then even if I cut back, I mean, it's a long story on my journey of the recovering from injuries. But the one big thing I took away, I think, through my own trials, and errors and stuff and that, and also the knowledge of me going and getting, different certifications and educating was how I can train an athlete, because of the sport is already so physically demanding and pounding on the body. It's kind of like the best way to describe it is like, as a tennis player, you can wear yourself out just as bad as a football player, but of the exception that no one's hitting you. You're just physically grinding because there's no real off season. If you're competing at a higher level, I mean, you're basically playing like 11 and a half months. There's no like ideal pyramid training system. I mean, they talk about it in tennis, but it's really hard unless you're going to physically, like, especially at the highest level, you can't take off 4 weeks to train a training block.
Right.
For a
Right.
lot of the pros at the most elite level, their training block is 2 weeks. They have a 2 week hiatus before the Australian Open, or the tournaments before the Australian Open starts in January. So, so one of the things I looked at is how can I improve an athlete without pounding on their body. So I really dove into a lot of different things of how to basically increase like ranges of motion, increase strength throughout the ranges, whether it's the foot, the knee, the hip, etc., the back. I had later in my career, I had like really, really bad lower injury, back injury in that year, a couple of years ago, where I was told I'd never be able to play again, but I'm standing here doing it, where I am. I mean, it wasn't one doctor, it was 11 doctors telling me I was done, but I'm
Wow.
gratefully
I'm
thankful
glad you got through that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. But to answer your question, so one of the things I really looked at is, so earlier this year, I became certified. It's called GPTCA. It's basically a governing certification. So I'm ATP certified, so I could work with like an ATP coach. I mean, pro, excuse me. And in that time, we have abilities where we have these conferences. Since COVID, we can't meet in person, so we've been doing a lot of stuff via Zoom and stuff, and all these different types of presentations and conferences. And I was privileged enough, and it just started more of my brain thoughts with a lot of things I've been doing just on my own from my own injuries, doing a lot of band training, loop band training is what I got certified in. And just learning how to take care of aging athletes. That's how it originally started. And I was the guinea pig. I was doing all of that on my own to see how my own body felt. And then obviously applied it to my athletes, on a higher level spectrum. But this past year was a really that, and I have a really good friend from Argentina that does a really amazing job. That what he does, he has special like hydraulic machine. You got eye training machines, a lot of great stuff, and we always bounce ideas off each other. And it was kind of more confirmation in basically in February. Actually, I take that back. In March this year, I was in this conference, and I was privileged enough to sit in this conference with basically Novak Djokovic's trainer, this Italian coach. And he showed video of basically a lot of things that Novak does. And a lot of it is the balance training. A lot of it's the eye training. So I was looking at, okay, what are ways that I can, especially younger kids, I have a lot of younger kids, and how to do things that are not going to be so overly taxing on the joints that's going to create injuries. So I basically created a system where I'm using just a ton of different balance modalities. A lot of the pieces that I ordered are actually stuff that's from Germany. So it took a little bit of a while to get over through customs and stuff. But anyways, it's been really, really good. And the funny thing is, everything that I have the kids do, I do it myself. I test it out first to see the pluses and minuses of it, where there could become limitations in the kids doing this. I mean, there's a couple pieces that I haven't posted yet that I know the kids are I had ordered that came from Germany, this one particular company, and I know for sure they're not ready for it. They're not developed enough, even in a balance standpoint to do it. But I do a lot of stuff as far as, strengthening the foot, all of the muscles, basically all through the chain, basically from the foot all the way through the lower back, obviously your core, obviously, and then the scapular shoulder area. So, with the band stuff, I typically do a lot of the loop band training for speed. It's a lot of stuff, speed or mobility work, and then stabilization work. And then from there, I use a lot of one of the other things that I've been really with the doctor that I work with, and that's he's a gait specialist. So I bounce a lot of ideas off of him as well from what I learned, from going to school for stuff. But then also he's got a higher education, a lot of other things that I don't have. So I bounce a lot of things as far as just training the foot, the importance of the gait of the foot, how it moves, how the feet work is one, and how to strengthen it. And a lot of the stuff that I post, it would even be more beneficial if the kids were barefoot, but because of sanitation reasons, I haven't put their shoes, but
100%, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's a lot of, balance work, using different, platforms, different instability structures. The other thing too, I use a lot of, which was something that Novak used, besides the balance stuff that he used, that I also thought, because I started doing it myself and I noticed the difference myself, was also training with like the water bags, so there's like instability, just because it just makes the kids, I noticed with even the kids, just as we were talking earlier, asking a lot of questions, just asking their feedback, and also I'm seeing visually, I'm seeing feedback from their body, how they're trying to constantly correct and keep the water balanced and exercise and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it
Yeah.
gives me a good, indication of, body awareness, because some of the kids sometimes, as through, puberty, they're going through these different growth spurts. Like some of these kids I'm working with. So it's like sometimes they
Yeah.
start to lose,
Their
lose
body
their,
can't even
their
catch up.
coordination
Yeah.
and stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so.
My brother was like that, man. It took him, I would say, like, man, 11 to like 15 was weird for his athleticism and his coordination, man. And finally, we kind of came into adult, kind of just finally all clicked. And it took a while. It's weird how the teenage body really goes through those changes.
Oh
So
yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, the a girl slash going to a woman's body, it happens at a much earlier rate than the guy. So it's just you're working with a completely different strong. Well, as much as the human body's it's similar, I always say it's different because ladies are built different than guys. So it's just like them going through their puberty and maturity is different, and then what their workload. As you think about also what they can do as far as exercising, what they're capable of, at one period of a time of their life, at a certain segment, as opposed to a guy. It's just it's amazing. You see those things. I mean, I still remember when I went through, and it was just like I remember I drove my mom and dad nuts because I went from like pants that were like naturally we'll say baggy to like floods. And I went from like a size 10 shoe like within 6 months from a size 10 to a size 13. And it was like every few months I was going up a half a spot, and my mom would be like, "Please stop growing. Like I keep buying you a pair of jeans, and you within like a week or two you've grown them out." It's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like, man, girls, like that's how I learned how to fight was from girls, man. When I was 9, 10, 11, 12, I was training with all the girls in class, and they were so much stronger than me. It wasn't like they were only maybe 2 years older than me, but the power that they already had at 11, 12 compared to when I was 9 was it was so different. Like I couldn't even catch up. And then but finally when I hit about 14 is like when I finally felt like I'm actually feeling more muscle. I'm feeling more speed. I'm actually, so man, the body definitely goes through those changes. It does.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's the other thing too, is it's just something I learned, like, not just training kids, but just even my, I can just speak from my own experience. It's just like, I know, even as guys, as you think about yourself, you said you're 29, right?
Yeah.
So you say you're 29, think about what your physical being was at like 2021. It's like the way I look at it is like right when I was about 24, 25, as my wife will say, I really morphed into more of a man's body than a teenage boy's body. As much as I was working out, it's like the body changed again. So now I'm more.
I just had that conversation.
I guess.
I just had that conversation with my girlfriend. I was like, I feel good. Of course, I feel good. I'm 29. I feel good, but I was like, things are different. Like I got to warm up a little longer. I notice I do. I gotta work on mobility in my hips a lot more than I used to. So it's different. But part of growing up. I'll be 30 actually in like exactly a month, November 8th. So I'm excited for that.
All right. All right. Happy early birthday, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks. But one of those tools I saw you got from Germany was like the pedaling one. I was like, that's pretty cool. I never seen that. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so there's like 4 setups for that. It's called Pedala Pedalo, excuse me. And one of the platforms, it's just basically like a flat platform. So every time the kid pushes, they got to keep their knees bent, so like an athletic stance to keep it kind of moving. And then there's another one in the video that the boards are actually like this, so they kind of go up and down.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's very challenging for the kids because it's almost like you're working on like going heel to toe each time. And then there's 2 other ones that I haven't shown yet because I know my fear is they're going to do it. And I know kids catch on to the concepts a lot quicker than adults do. But my fear is because I had, in a shorter version, I had tried it with one of my colleagues at my job, and he almost like killed himself because basically they're small wheels and they're pegs that are literally like, we'll say about 3 to 4 inches wide. So just enough to put your foot on it. And they're super small. So you're basically on the ball of your foot going on this little peg, trying to balance both your feet while you do it. And it goes up and down. So it's pretty challenging. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I can do it, but not for very far. I have in the back of my head that basically I'll be 40 in December. I'm like, if I fall,
Oh,
there's a
nice.
good chance I'm going to break something. And it's just, and this is a
Can't have
hard
that.
floor. So
Yeah.
it's not matted. There's no carpet. There's no ropes
Oh
for me to
man,
grab.
dude, you
So
might as well go rollerblade. It sounds like and go on a half pipe.
yeah, no. Yeah, no, I learned the hard way. It's funny you say that. My son likes skateboarding
Oh
and
man.
I mean, I used to skateboard as a kid, but yeah, a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, I know how to still do that stuff. And I'm watching all these, teenage kids doing all this stuff. And
Uh,
yeah, it's funny you said that. I went up half of a pipe and I came down instead of staying low. I stood up and the board went flying out and I landed on my arm. And it was just like, yeah, I came
Dang.
back and I thought I broke my, I knew I didn't break my arm. I thought maybe I could have chipped a bone because I didn't have
Yeah.
any pads on. My kid's all padded up. I'm not. I'm not. It's like it's kind of those things like in your head, you still can do it, but then your body's like, no,
Yeah.
it's past you, man.
Oh man,
So
that's
yeah,
crazy.
that
I'm
took me a
glad
while
you're
to
all right,
recover
man.
from that one. So yeah,
Oh yeah, that's scary. That's super scary.
yeah,
One more question.
sure.
With coaching, do you ever feel like you know everything, but at the same time, you feel like you don't know everything? Like you still like do you feel like you're still learning and picking up on new things all the time?
All right, I got two answers to that one. One, for as long as I've been doing this, whether it be a
Mhm.
coach, player, all these years in that, I can honestly say, yes, I don't know everything.
Yeah,
Every time I feel like I'm getting a grasp on stuff, I'm very
yeah,
creative. Those that know me know I'm very creative with the way I think. I kind of think outside the box for my
yeah,
industry
yeah,
with a lot
yeah,
of things I do.
yeah,
Even though I know it works, it's just that, I've learned a lot over the years, not just through my son with his challenges, but I know that, with kids, they all learn differently. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
have to always think of outside the box, kind of was saying earlier. So with that being said, I think at a very young age, I was probably like 17 years old, and this is going somewhere here. When I was like about 17 years old, my coach that was working with me, he had me work with kids on Saturdays for 2 hours. It was a 2 hour class, and all the kids had all disabilities. They
mm,
ADD, ADHD, in a wheelchair. I had a kid who played tennis with a racket in his mouth. They made a mouthpiece. He hit
mm,
with his head. I mean, I had all these things, and I had a total. At 17 years old, I had just a total different respect as far as not just learning, but just understanding that everyone one learns differently, but everyone may have their own challenges, whether it be mentally or physically. And for me, if I'm going to do this job and I'm going to do it the best of my ability, I got to learn every possible way in how to, in fact, basically enrich them and improve them in whatever way it is. I mean, to teach someone who is physically completely able, as opposed to someone in the wheelchair, or like this one boy who was hitting a foam ball basically with a racket that was attached. It was a shorter, like junior racket in his mouth, hitting to teach him
mm,
an enjoyment of the game. You can't teach any of them the same. So
yeah,
for me, I had to learn a lot, and I think the biggest thing I think in general, I think in anything we want to be successful with is no matter how much knowledge we have or how much we know, is to constantly have that like growth mindset and have passion to keep learning. And I
mm,
think the biggest thing I've learned, even these past few years, especially around even COVID, when everybody was like shut down, and you had a lot of people having different types of YouTube this or Zoom this, and one of the things I personally learned is that I never judge anybody. I've never been a judgmental person per se. So I always look at everyone's the way they're coming from. So when
mm,
someone has a methodology of how they do something, I'm not going to say, oh, it's wrong, because I don't do it that way. It's like, I would rather, instead of saying, no, it's incorrect, I'd rather say, okay, why does that person do it that way? What makes it successful doing it that way for them? Just like when I do things that are maybe outside the box for my profession, first,
yeah,
it's funny. Some people used to look at me, man, that guy's crazy. Like, why is he doing it that way? I used to build stuff on the court, I used to build stuff out of trash cans to make kids hit. I mean, there's stuff I used to do that my old coworkers used to remember where I was at one job. But they were like, when they'd start seeing me, at first, they'd be like, man, this is crazy. But then they'd see what I was doing, like, holy cow, it's made the kid improve that much faster.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
like me, it was like way I can get through to them to either see, feel, or understand it. But like that's part of it. And then, yeah, I think that as much as I know, there's days where I'm like, man, do I really know as much as I think I
yeah.
know?
I know that's
Because
how
it's
I
like,
feel too.
you because
Yeah,
the funny thing is as like kids or sometimes even adults, sometimes they'll ask a question and just the way that they go about it is maybe different than you're used to being asked. And you're
yeah,
like, hold on, let me think about that for a second before I answer you, because I want to answer you the best way of my knowledge, not just immediately impulsively respond and go, that didn't come out the way I wanted to, or you know what, it could be done a
Yeah.
better way. I'd rather
Yeah.
take it away for a second, take it collectively in, and then give it out then from there. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that, man. My 19-year-old client, he's always on YouTube. Like, and then he asked me this question the other day. I was like, honestly, dude, I don't even know. I was like, I don't even know, dude. I don't even like whatever you research. I was like, I have to research that. I don't even know. So,
Yeah,
man,
I think, yeah,
yeah,
it's funny you say, because I feel, I think the biggest thing I've learned, with working with other great coaches around the country, not just the U.S. but in the world, is that a lot of times, you have your niche, your certain niche
yeah,
things you're good at, and then there's certain things you're always going to be a little bit behind on, and that's okay. That's what makes
yeah,
us
yeah,
all unique. And I think
yeah,
that the biggest thing is, if we know there's something we're not good at, or there's something that we know we could be better at, there's nothing wrong with asking someone else for help.
right,
As far as like, hey, I'm really good at this, but I struggle with this. What would you tell me to read or watch, or what would you do,
mhm,
or how would you do it? I think sometimes people have like their I don't want to say ego, but sometimes they feel ashamed to ask, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like you're doing more harm than good than not asking questions. I think it's like,
right,
if we, it was funny. I had a conversation with a coach yesterday, actually from Florida, and this guy's been doing it for 48 years, and he's a good friend of mine in Florida. And he
yeah,
just said, we were talking about the history of the game of coaching, and he just said years ago, coaches never wanted to share their secrents. So when they were,
mhm,
producing players, it was all hush hush. They didn't tell anyone. Like, anyone who worked with them,
mhm,
they were not allowed to tell any of what they were doing at the. Now you look at like Instagram or Twitter or YouTube. People are willing to now share their knowledge.
yeah,
And or you go to a conference and whatever you're doing in my industry, tennis, it's like people are willing to like share their knowledge,
oh
or at
yeah,
least give them a glimpse of what they do. Super,
mhm,
super grateful for that, because it
yeah,
gives you a view of like, not always are you always going to do this. Maybe say you see a drill and, man, it's a great drill, but maybe it's not a drill you can use, but it's still something that kind of gets the creative juices going, thinking about things
yeah,
outside the box, or how they do stuff that creates that such a successful player or type of training system. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, for example, like the whole balancing stuff. That's partially from my buddy from Argentina, who trains a lot of professional athletes. That also, we used to work together. I used to coach him as a tennis. At one point, I was his coach, but then he opened up his own training facility. So I know the stressors that you're going through when you open up a facility or you're trying to do that. The stressors that go along with it. I
yeah,
know he went through a lot, and but he was one of those that kind of, we used to bounce ideas off each other, and then, like I said, and then doing this conference with Novak's trainer, Marco, it was a huge, kind of eye opener that, those concepts are real, and those are validated, that they are effective in the sport that I play, and it's
mhm,
also not pounding on the body, but yet it's getting the most bang for the buck of their time. And I mean, I've been doing this with the kids, to be quite honest with you, for the past, I say 6 weeks. And like every coach, I haven't said anything. I'm just watching. I mean, I'm seeing a difference, but it's one thing for me to see a difference, but it's another thing for the player to acknowledge it, or even the coaches that work with them to acknowledge it. And in the past week, I've had coaches say, man, I'm so thankful you're here doing this, because I can see such a difference. Like, our lesson quality is much better because the kids has more capabilities of doing stuff. And then when I
right.
ask the kids, like, how are they doing? They're like, I feel so much better. I'm so much faster on the court. I feel much more stable. Like, so I know it's making an impact, and which then in hand makes me feel good about what I'm doing. So,
That's beautiful, man. So it's like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Keep learning. Be creative. Just have a purpose. Have a reason behind it. And
right.
yeah, and the results will speak for itself at the end of the day. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. No, totally agree on those fronts. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Aaron, I don't want to take no more of your time, man. This is so good. Like, I learned a lot. I can't wait to share this and cut this up to different pieces, and all the different parts we talked about. Was some good stuff. We covered a lot, and I'm very grateful for your expertise and what you shared here. And keep doing good work, man. You're changing lives out there, and I'm excited to keep following you and your journey.
Thanks. Well, the feeling is mutual, and I'm grateful for you taking the time to speak with me. And that I love doing stuff like this. Anytime I get an opportunity, I'm really grateful, and that I'm really blessed, Jason, that you took the time. And I actually, dude, I'm really proud of all the stuff you've been doing, man. I enjoy your posting that, because I know it's. I think the hardest challenge is when you're at the ground level, when you have that vision, that dream
Yeah,
of what you want to do. I mean, it's like sometimes you might feel like you're the only one that's believing in that journey, but it's
um,
like, just know that you keep plugging away every day with a purpose. It will come. That's one thing I've been a true believer is as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, and you're doing it for the right reason, which I know you are, and you just keep working each day towards it, and just, I always feel like every setback, there's an opportunity for a comeback. So it's like every time we
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
setback, there's a way to look at doing something a little bit different. And in the way I
Mhm.
say, when we look at doing something different, we're actually improving and we're being more of our true self is the way I look at it. So
Well
congrats
said.
to you too as well, but I'm definitely going to look forward to more of great stuff. And anytime you ever want to do it again, let me know too. I'd be more than happy to donate my time anytime you need it, buddy. I really
Man,
appreciate your time.
perfect. We'll definitely do this again, Aaron. I
All right.
appreciate the words, man. Thank
No
you.
problem, man. All right. You have a great day.
All right.
Thank you for
You
your
too
time
later.
again.
All
All
right.
right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye now.